Last one, but you're always quick, so go ahead.
I don't want to hold you back, Mr. Secretary. Can you tell me how much money have you given to the Bukele regime?
Well, it's not a regime. He got elected by an enormous majority.
Well, the second, his reelection was actually an illegal reelection. Remember that he took over Congress, and then by bringing the military and fired all of the entire judiciary.
Yeah, they still had an election. He won by, I don't know what the margins were, but they were extraordinary. I just don't think it's fair to call him a regime. I know you don't like him and you have
that's
reasons
fine.
not to like him, but I
How
don't think
much
it's
money?
fair to say they're a regime. A regime is in Venezuela. This guy had a real election.
How much money, sir?
Well, I have to give you the number, but I think it's 1.4 million, or let me not I have the exact number. I don't have it in front of me, but
Okay.
it was law enforcement funds provided to them, as we do other countries under that program. It had not, you know,
Senator
they
Murray
could use it for any
yesterday said
purpose
it was
they want.
$15 million. Are you saying that that amount is incorrect?
That amount sounds incorrect to me, but I'll get you the exact number because
Thank
I owe you that much.
And are we doing a second round to give him more money?
Other than maybe, no, I don't believe that there's a second round per se. Well, there might be because these are 2024 dollars.
I
So
love
it's
to
possible they're
continue this
eligible for
conversation
$25.
with you at another time, maybe in a private setting, so that we could really talk about.
Yeah,
in
but these
more
are law enforcement funds, so they could receive under 2025. I can't say they won't. Obviously, we're working through that process.
The Leahy law prohibits, sending money to a country that terrorizes people and punishes them without due process.
Yeah, that's not our assessment of what's happening there. Our assessment is that he's cleaned up the country and gotten rid of gangs. That was a country you couldn't even walk in the
By
streets
disappearing
4 years
people.
ago. No, they're not disappeared. They're in the jail.
Okay, I yield back.
Privileged to recognize Ms. Meng now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here today. First, I wanted to continue to urge you and the President to do everything in your power to bring home the 58 hostages who Hamas still holds in captivity. That includes 4 American citizens, Itai Khan, Gadi Hagai, Judith Weinstein Hagai, and Omer Nutra. And I want to urge you to continue efforts to please get humanitarian aid into Gaza and make sure it's getting to Palestinian civilians and not Hamas. Mr. Secretary, I too am extremely concerned that your actions will prevent the State Department from fulfilling requirements under federal law to comply with congressional directives and fund programs that Congress agrees, bipartisan agreement, are a priority. One example is basic education, authorized by the Reinforcing Education Accountability and Development, or READ Act. This is a bill that you personally introduced in 2017, and I was proud to co-lead its reauthorization last year in the House. However, during your review of foreign aid, you personally canceled all international basic education programs. As a result, an estimated 44 million learners will lose access to education, vocational, and workforce development programs supported by the U.S. government. These are programs that make us safer, stronger, and more prosperous by building stability and helping kids stay in school. This is statutory. Under federal law, you are required to spend these funds. What is your plan to fulfill the congressional directives of the READ Act and ensure millions of children around the world can stay in school?
Well, number one, we always looked at, I would characterize that as development assistance because that's what it is. You're trying to build the development capabilities of a country. And I think those would have to be driven, we would be open to doing programs that work, but they would have to be driven because an embassy or a regional bureau thinks these kinds of programs will work in this particular setting as opposed to this global view on it. But just because something's called something nice doesn't necessarily mean that's what it's delivering on. There are many of these programs where, frankly, if you talk to the partner nation, they would say, I'll give you an example. I was recently in one of the Caribbean nations, and they're very grateful for help with schools, but their number one need is security. They have to build up their police departments and their security assistance. So they would tell you, before we can focus on our educational systems, we want to build capacity in our law enforcement so we can provide security so that then our society can flourish and that could be possible. That doesn't mean education is not important. It just means that the nation has identified that as a more important need, and we want to have the flexibility to be able to prioritize what could be most helpful.
So that I agree, and we would love to work with you on potential legislation and programming on safety and security. But this legislation, it's not just something that sounds nice and has a pretty title. We worked on this together, the Senate, the House, Republicans, Democrats. It's something that's important and keeps us safe. And that is, statutory. That is something that has been touched. And so I wanted to follow up also in the same vein with international family planning and reproductive health programs. You have also canceled all of these programs. These programs are life-saving. In 2024 alone, they were estimated to save the lives of 34,000 women and girls, prevent over 5 million unsafe abortions, and serve over 47 million women and couples around the world with modern contraceptive care. You are statutorily required to spend $575 million in bilateral international family planning awards, as Congress provided in 2024. What is the plan?
There's no plan. As I said, on those programs, with regards to that, there's no plan to spend that money. We're not going to be in that business globally. I mean, we're not going to do it.
So it doesn't matter that Congress passed the law?
Well, the money, that's not, the money that's been appropriated is for that purpose, but the way it's been spent, those programs, the way that money was being spent and the specific uses, we're not going to continue to do it in that same way.
What is the plan then? I know you talked about reorganization.
Again, all of those funds that will be brought under one of the two buckets of humanitarian assistance, it could be development assistance, it could be refugee and migration assistance. We will work with Congress to find a way to channel those funds in a way that comply with the statute, but at the same time are not funding activities that the administration feels is outside even the purview of the statute.
I just want to say that is statute, that is law, and contrary to your testimony, you are touching and changing it. And you said you wanted to work together with Congress. On April 24th, almost 90 members sent you a letter about these programs requesting a response. We still have not received a response. I respect that you say you want to work with us, but we need more than words, we need actions.
You'll get a response. What day was that letter?
April 24th. Okay. Thank you very much. I yield back.
Thank you.
Recognized Representative Liu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Secretary Rubio, thank you for being here today. As a member of the legislative branch, I don't have a special exemption to violate the law. You would agree with me, wouldn't you, that in America, no one is above the law?
Of course.
Okay. And in our system of government, it's Congress that makes the laws, the executive branch that executes the laws, and the judicial branch, when there's a dispute, that says what the law is. Is that right?
Within the context of separation of powers, yes.
Okay. And the reason that due process is so fundamental to America is before we put the entire weight of the federal government and snatch someone off the street, we might want to ask, hey, do you have something to say about that? Might we have the wrong person? And in the case of Mr. Garcia, the Trump administration admitted in court that they mistakenly deported him to El Salvador. The Supreme Court, in a 9-0 decision, said the Trump administration has to facilitate getting him back. Do you believe the administration has to follow that Supreme Court order?
Well, I don't believe he was wrongfully deported. He's an Salvadorian citizen.
That's not my question. Do you believe the Trump administration has to follow the Supreme Court 9-0 unanimous decision?
Within the context of separation of powers. That
Okay.
no court can tell me how to conduct foreign policy. They can't tell me what I have to say to a president of another country, nor do I need to tell them what I told the president of another country, because I can't conduct
I'm just
foreign
asking you,
policy.
do you believe the Trump administration has to follow the unanimous Supreme Court
I believe we
decision?
are following it.
Okay, so my next question is, what steps have you or the State Department taken to facilitate the return of Mr. Garcia, who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador?
The conduct of our foreign policy is an executive function, and how I conduct
I'm
it,
just
I don't need to
asking
share
you,
with you.
well,
and
let
I
me
don't
ask you
need to share with the court.
Have you or the State Department taken any steps to facilitate?
We've taken
the
steps,
return?
but I'm not going to tell you what they are, and I don't have to, because we conduct the foreign policy of the United States, and I can't conduct diplomacy with a
And
foreign
so-
leader if I come to committees and tell you what they said to me,
Right.
what I said to them,
you-
and more certainly a
Now,
court can't
so
tell me to say
you
that
have
either.
taken steps to facilitate Mr. Garcia's return.
We've made those. We've made that assertion, and we've made those assertions in court, and
All right,
we've
thank
complied.
you. I appreciate that. I'd like to ask you now about Ukraine. On August 24th, 2022, you tweeted the following. In the past 6 months since Putin's criminal invasion of Ukraine, Ukrainians have shown incredible bravery and strength as they fight to defend their homeland. On Ukraine's Independence Day, the free world applauds your courage and celebrates Ukraine's sovereignty. And then also in 2022, you said the people of Ukraine are tough people who will never accept being ruled by Putin. I want to ask you, I assume you continue to believe what you said in 2022, right? That we should celebrate Ukraine's sovereignty and that the people of Ukraine will never accept being ruled by Putin, right?
Yeah, that's why we're trying to end the war.
All right. On April 30th, 2018, you tweeted, "Glad to see State Department confirm delivery of Javelin anti-tank missiles to Ukraine. The U.S. should continue empowering Ukraine and other allies to defend against the threat of Russian aggression." You would agree with your prior statement that the U.S. should continue to support Ukraine against Russian aggression, right?
We've supported them more than anyone in the world.
All right. Unfortunately, it appears Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth went rogue and decided unilaterally to stop support for Ukraine earlier this year. Various news organizations reported that Secretary Hegseth paused military support to Ukraine without President Trump's knowledge. I'm going to read you from one article dated May 6, quote, "Pete Hegseth canceled military aid flights to Ukraine just a week into Trump's second term without the president even knowing," according to Reuters. The order initially sparked mass confusion within the administration as national security officials in the White House, the Pentagon, and the State Department couldn't figure out who ordered the halt in flights. This is yet another example of the chaos and lack of cohesion that Hegseth has brought to the Pentagon from day one. Did Secretary Hegseth tell you before he ordered the halt in flights to Ukraine of military weapons?
I can't comment on that because I don't remember that. I don't remember ever hearing that, to what you're claiming now.
So your understanding is he never told you he was going to halt these flights?
I just know we're providing them assistance now, but the war ultimately has to end.
In 2016, you stated the following: "From his repression of the Russian people and the assassination of his critics, to his dangerous invasion of Ukraine and the occupation of Crimea, to his threats against our NATO allies in Central and Eastern Europe, to the war crimes committed by Russian forces, Putin's Russia is a threat to global stability." You would agree with your prior statement, right, that Putin's Russia is a threat to global stability?
I would agree that in my role as Secretary of State, my job is to bring Russia to the table to end a war, and that's what we're trying to do right now. We're trying to end a war so that more people don't die.
Thank you. And trying to end the war, I simply note that Putin on Palm Sunday launched a barrage of missiles, killed a bunch of civilians. Right before his conversation with Trump recently, he launched a bunch of missiles, killed a bunch of civilians. So clearly, Putin is giving the middle finger to you and to the president. I urge you to defeat Putin on the battlefield. That's the only way to get him to the negotiating table. I yield back.
Chair now recognizes